The Murders at Hinterkaifeck. In the winter of 1921, in the small Bavarian village of Kaifeck, Germany, a man named Andreas Gruber owned and ran a farm called Hinterkaifeck. The farm was isolated, settled deep in the German woods away from the rest of the town. Andreas lived on the Hinterkaifeck farm with his wife, their widowed daughter, and her 2 children. The wealthy Gruber family also employed a maid who lived with them in the house. The Gruber's maid became convinced that the Hinterkaifeck farmhouse was haunted. She told the Grubers that she had heard strange noises both in and outside the house, including disembodied footsteps coming from the attic at night. The Grubers dismissed her claims as simply an overactive imagination. However, the maid was convinced. She quit her job and left the Hinterkaifeck farm, never to return. Many months later, Andreas Gruber was out in the early morning inspecting his farm after a snowstorm. He found something very odd, a long track of footsteps in the snow leading up to the back of his home, but stopping a few feet from the house. Andreas traced the footsteps back and to his horror discovered that the set of footsteps leading to his house actually came from the dark woods that surrounded the Hinterkaifeck farm. Andreas raced back to the farm and searched his house, his tool shed, and his barn, but he found no one inside. Days later, the Gruber family began to hear strange, unexplained noises in their house, similar to the noises their ex-maid had reported many months before. Late one night, Andreas and his wife heard heavy footsteps coming from the attic above them. Andreas grabbed his gun and raced to the attic, prepared to confront the strange intruder. However, once he arrived at the dark attic, he found no one there. The attic was empty. Andreas searched the rest of the house, but no intruder was to be found. The next day, Andreas Gruber surveyed his property, searching for more footprints or any sign of an unwelcome visitor from the night before. But Andreas found no new tracks in the snow. However, when Andreas went back to the Hinterkaifeck farmhouse, he found a strange newspaper lying on the front porch. A newspaper that Andreas had never subscribed to, never bought, or never read. A few days later, the house keys that always hung in the Gruber's kitchen went missing. Fast forward. As days went by, the local townspeople began to notice that none of the members of the Gruber family had been seen in town. Furthermore, the postman reported that the Gruber's mail had begun to pile up at their door at the Hinterkaifeck farm, none of it being collected by the family. On April 4th, 1922, some of the neighboring townsfolk decided to trek through the woods to check on the Gruber family at the isolated Hinterkaifeck farm. The neighbors knocked at the door, but no one answered. They called out to the family members by name, but again, no answer. So the neighbors began to investigate, checking carefully around the Hinterkaifeck farm. The searchers soon made a grisly discovery. Andreas Gruber, his wife, and the other 3 members of the Gruber family were all dead. Some of the bodies were piled in a stack on the barn floor and could only be identified after their bodies were separated. Once the bodies were sorted, they found the bloody remains of Andreas Gruber, his wife, their daughter Victoria, and Victoria's daughter, Cecilia. The Gruber's new maid, who had only arrived at the farm a few days before, was found dead in an upstairs bedroom, as was baby Joseph. The entire family had been violently murdered with a pickaxe taken from Andreas Gruber's own tool shed. The Gruber's murderer was never found, and the Hinterkaifeck case remains unsolved. The following year, the townspeople had the isolated Hinterkaifeck farmhouse destroyed.